Hey, everyone. What's going on? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com. Happy week 5 of the college football season. Hard to believe it. We are a quarter of the way through, entering into week 5. Auburn coming off a win over Georgia State 34-24. Tom Green joins me now to discuss everything that went down because there's a lot to talk about here, especially being the fact that 34-24, not indicative of the things. Obviously, a win is a win, but there's a lot of people, and even over the weekend, I had a couple of people text me like, oh my gosh, I was so stressed out. Like my blood pressure was through the roof, all of this chaos happening. Of course, they pulled it off, but there is a lot to kind of divulge here and break down as we enter into week 5 of the season. And I just want to get your thoughts first and foremost from the offensive side of the football. The big storyline is who's going to be the quarterback this upcoming week. We'll get into that, but just your thoughts overall when Bo Nix just was not getting the job done and struggling there throughout much of the first half and into the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Never really a dull moment with this team, it seems. Bo Nix, second straight game, kind of struggling. He looked a little bit better against Penn State because, the receivers just weren't making some plays for him in that game. But he just didn't look like he was very confident or comfortable against what Georgia State was doing. Looked like at times he didn't know where he was going with the ball. Saw the pocket collapse a few times, and he, kind of just scrambled and wasn't sure what he was doing, had to throw some passes away. Wasn't particularly effective on third downs in particular. I think he completed only 3 of 9 passes on third downs. And, a lot of those, after those third down incompletions, he started hearing it from the fans. Boos were raining down from the stands at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Chants of "We want TJ" broke out from the student section there early in the second half. And eventually, Bryan Harsin made that call, benched Bo Nix, brought in TJ Finley. Thought the offense just needed something to create some kind of spark or momentum to get things going because they were just not getting it done against Georgia State. They had some promising drives into Georgia State territory that just, stalled out and fizzled, and they had to keep settling for field goals. Kudos to Anders Carlson, who was automatic in the first half, kept them in it, 4 for 4 on field goals. I know he missed one there in the second half, but, special teams really kept them in it because the offense just was slogging through everything. And then TJ Finley came in. They really just told him one thing, control the offense, do what you need to do, just execute. And, when the game was on the line, down 5 in the final 3+ minutes, backed up to their own 2-yard line, he guided them on a 13-play, 98-yard touchdown drive. He made a play on 4th down and 4th and 9 from 10 yards out, evaded a sack, kept his eyes downfield, and found Shedrick Jackson for that go-ahead touchdown, 45 seconds left. It certainly shows something about his poise and just his comfort and, being able to, guide the offense in that situation because, that's not an easy situation to be in, even at home. And he just showed a lot of guts. I think he finished 9 of 16 for like 97 yards in the touchdown. Certainly not the most, eye-popping, stat line, but, the offense was able to move the ball, pretty consistently with him in there. So Bryan Harsin's got an interesting decision on his hands this week.
And that teases up perfectly. What will the decision be as Auburn travels to LSU? Let's see what the old coach had to say.
I was going through the week. When would you like to have a decision made on the starter for LSU? What's sort of your game plan there?
I don't have a game plan like that. That's not how it works. I don't have a game plan like that. And I don't have to tell anybody what the game plan is. All right? I played it. I've coached it. All right? And those guys, the quarterback position, you get yourself ready like everybody else. Bottom line, you're a part of this team. Wide receivers, get yourself ready. DBs, get yourself ready. All right? Specialists, get yourself ready. I mean, I know everybody wants to make a big thing out of that. That becomes the storyline. The storyline is get better. That's the storyline. Auburn football, get better.
Auburn football, get better. Yeah. There you go. So just your thoughts. I mean, what do you anticipate happening? What do you think should happen? I'll let you throw it out there, and we'll let the fans over here comment and either agree or disagree.
Yeah, no, I think Bryan Harsin's statements were interesting. You could tell he was really fired up. He was not pleased with how his team performed in that game. Obviously, he was proud of how they gutted it out and they were able to win, but you could tell that he was just not pleased with how they prepared throughout the week. And now, like I said, he's got a very important decision to make. He's going to keep it tight-lipped through this week. I can't imagine him naming a starter before they, go out there for warm-ups on Saturday, at least publicly. They'll decide that in practice this week. I think I'd be very hard pressed to not start TJ Finley after what he just did. Because I think, after you bring him in and he, delivers the way he did in the fourth quarter, to then bring him back to the bench, I think that would probably shoot his confidence down quite a bit. Not saying that Finley should be the guy moving forward throughout the rest of the season. Because maybe Bo Nix shows improvement. Maybe, he was just didn't have the right, headspace against Georgia State this week or something. I don't know what it was. But, if you were to, pull Finley and put Nix back in there, I think you might risk shooting Finley's confidence. And then you have to consider who you're playing this week. You're going on the road to LSU, which is TJ Finley's former team. He has started games in that stadium. He has won games in that stadium, which nobody at Auburn has done in, 20 years. So he's got experience there. Yes, it's going to be an emotional homecoming for him. He's already told his teammates, this is his homecoming, whether he starts or not, this game means a little bit more to him just because, he grew up wanting to go to LSU. That was always his dream school. That's where he started his career. He started 5 games as a freshman for them. So, it's going to be emotional for him, whether he starts or not. And I think the team's going to rally around him no matter what. I think they're going to use that as a rallying cry of sorts this week. And then, you look at Bo Nix, who historically over the last 2+ seasons has not fared well on the road, especially in these tougher games and tougher environments. So, I think that's something you have to kind of consider when you're making that decision. We'll see how they perform in practice this week, what kind of hints or, any inclinations that we glean from Bryan Harsin or other players when we talk to them this week, what we can find out. But, again, I think it would be hard not to start TJ Finley in this situation.
Yeah, definitely a unique situation. And you will hear from Coach Harsin later today. And I imagine you will get much of the same response if anyone gets deep into that quarterback conversation. But definitely a unique situation. And, of course, you talk about the confidence. One way or another, whoever ends up getting the opportunity, I definitely think the confidence for the other is certainly going to take a hit. And I think that's just the nature of it when you have to make some changes and shuffle things around. And there's obviously something that led him to make that decision in the way that Bo Nix was playing. And, we'll see how things shake out in practice this week. Another big news that came down yesterday, Auburn firing its wide receivers coach, Cornelius Williams. 4 games into the season. Kind of interesting that, that would happen so quickly. First-year receivers coach. And, just your thoughts on sort of the quick decision to do that and, who steps in at this point to coach up the receivers and kind of keep those guys intact.
Well, Bryan Harsin said after the game, he didn't want the quarterback situation to be the storyline of the week. And, well, now we got a new one here with Cornelius Williams out after 4 games. I think it was pretty surprising. This is a guy who, was just hired back in January, signed a 2-year contract worth $300,000 annually. So Auburn owes him $600,000, over the next 2 years. That can obviously be mitigated if he gets another job between now and the end of that contract. But, I think it was a little bit surprising. Why? Obviously, this is Bryan Harsin's first year, but why hire a guy just to fire him 4 games into the season? They've promoted offensive analyst Eric Kiesau to the wide receivers position for the remainder of the season. In the interim, Kiesau's a guy who's got a lot more big time coaching experience. He's coached with Harsin for the last 4 years. at Boise State, including last year as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, the previous 3 years as wide receivers coach. So he knows what Harsin wants from, that position at wide receiver. He's got experience with him there. He's been in the SEC before. I believe he was an analyst at Alabama. He's been kind of all over the place, but, he's a more seasoned coach, and he'll be filling in there. But, if, you weren't sure about Cornelius Williams to begin with, why hire him in the first place? Why not just hire Keesaw off the bat? I think that's, a question that, Bryan Harsin will probably have to answer today. But again, really surprising after just 4 games in the year one. But, you could tell, over these last couple of weeks that Bryan Harsin just was not pleased with the play and the development of that wide receiver group. And, they've been inconsistent. He talked about the need for them to be more consistent, to go up and make plays, create explosive plays in the passing game. And that just, hasn't really happened the last couple of weeks. Of course, credit to Shedrick Jackson for the play that he made on a broken play on 4th down there, because he went up there and he got that ball and he made sure that, he was going to catch that on 4th down. But, outside of that, Auburn's receivers have been, kind of on, shaky footing these last couple of weeks.
No doubt. Yeah. Definitely interesting decisions being made. And I imagine, again, like you said, we'll probably, at least he'll get questions. We'll see how those get answered in the press conference here in just a little bit. Last question for you, Tom. Auburn has not beaten LSU in Baton Rouge since 1999. It's been a long time since they've gone there and won. What, in your opinion, if there's 2-3 keys, does Auburn need to focus in on this week in practice to go to Baton Rouge and have any hopes of getting a win there?
Well, first, I think they need to find whatever hex or voodoo spell was put on them when they go in there and find a way to break that, because it has been
brutal.
Yeah, it has been brutal these last 2+ decades. They haven't won there since 1999. The infamous cigar game. They've lost 10 straight there. There've been a handful of blowouts. They've had some close calls. Especially in recent years. Their last trip there in 2019. They gave LSU its toughest matchup on in a year that LSU was just crushing a lot of people on the way to the national championship. I think obviously this LSU team isn't that LSU team. They're unranked right now. They opened the season with that loss to UCLA, but they seem to be riding the ship right now. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. But Auburn just needs to execute. We've seen what this offense can do. Of course, it was against lesser opponents early in the season, but when these guys execute, they can put up points, and that's the one thing about Auburn in recent years when it's struggled on the road is it hasn't been able to put enough points on the board to compete with a lot of these teams. Defense is going to have its hands full again. They turned things around in the second half against Georgia State. They just completely shut things down after having some misfits in the run game and more blown coverages in the passing game. So maybe that's a sign that they're starting to get things right defensively. But Auburn's just gonna need everything to go right because like I said, there's been some sort of hex on them when they've been in Death Valley.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and it's you don't want to go into this game just with the automatic assumption like, okay, like this is the narrative, but this is going to be critical, I think, for this Auburn team, especially in gaining confidence moving forward. Obviously, we'll see what happens at the quarterback situation. What is that going to look like in practice? Obviously, I don't think we'll know who's going to be starting at quarterback until they step foot on the field by Saturday. Just based on Bryan Harsin's comments, it doesn't sound like he's willing to kind of, reveal that hand at this point. So will definitely be very interesting. Anxious to see how things shake out. Again, that is a night game in Baton Rouge, which even adds more fuel to the fire. 8:00 on ESPN. Gosh, that's as late as it gets, man. And I know those players, when you think about it as even media members, like the hurry up and to sit around as players, the anxiousness, the anticipation. Woo, that's a late game. But it'll be exciting. So travel safe to Baton Rouge. Of course, we'll have all the other week. I know you're about to check in with Harsin for that press conference. So, of course, you can check out all those updates, Tom Green on Twitter. And then you can also check it out on AL.com and, of course, all our social channels. Thank you, coaching Tom. Thank you. Thank you to our producer, Patrick. Give you a shout out there. Pop yourself up on the screen again like I made you do before, just because I want everyone to see your smiling face, Patrick. Say hello.
It's a wild time to be an Auburn Tiger fan.
It's a wild time. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.